Back with the very final episode of season 4 of Neverending Adventure. My name is Diggity DJ Netty P.
And I am Russell Tyndall. Welcome, everybody. This is awesome. We're talking about The Lich, season 4, episode 26. Like Ned said, this is the last one of this season. And it's a good canonical world builder episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's probably the best indicator that the show is going to be getting crazy, like moving forward.
Yeah, it's a great sign for the future of Adventure Time, because I easily could see how, okay, we've done the like silly, goofy adventures for so long now. Let's move on to something bigger. And this does feel like we're getting into something bigger. I feel like my takeaway, though, as I was thinking about how I felt about this and how long I've wanted to get into the canonical, what's the Lich doing? Like, the snail's been the Lich for so long, and we see it a little bit in one episode in this season with the bear giving the Lich to the Enchiridion, which obviously comes into play in this episode. Mm-hmm. But I was just so curious, like, what's really going to happen? And as I watched this episode, I was thinking back to the last episode, I Remember You, and how much I enjoyed that. And I guess you don't really need to have insane amount of plot to make a really, I mean, this is obviously a stupid revelation, but like, you don't need a crazy amount of plot to make a really good episode. This episode is not necessarily insanely amazing as far as like what happens as the episode by itself, but I do think it does play. I mean, it plays such a huge part in what's about to happen. So
you honestly, because we'll pick up on season 5, and it literally picks up with like them being sucked into the portal, and then episode 2 of season 5 follows that. So we have to really think about like this. This starts kind of what would be like a 30 to 35 minute episode of Adventure Time. Like all.
I'm so curious. So. Yeah,
I think
watched,
when we,
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, we watched the next episode just in case we were going to do a double today for recording, right? And I have so many questions, dog. I got so many questions.
I know. Well, I wanted to open up, like, again, like I want to hear all your thoughts on it, because this is your first kind of introduction to Multiverse in Adventure Time as a true canon like event. You're also a huge Rick and Morty fan. I attribute you to being a big Rick and Morty fan.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I keep up with it much, and I haven't seen the new seasons by any means, but those first 2 seasons rocked me, like they did many people, you know. So, but yeah, no, I mean, I like Rick and Morty plenty, and there's other multiverse stuff. I mean, there's a really great episode of Community where they're spinning the dice, and every time the dice lands on a different number, they kind of have a different scenario that plays out. And then at the end, I can't remember what happened. It's a great episode. Go watch it. But it's kind of a crazy, and they introduce some evil characters in that episode as well. But that's just Dan Harmon, you know, doing the storyboard where he's like going all the way through the hero's journey on every episode. So like in this episode, I think it probably lacks in the case that it doesn't have a real, like, you can't just watch this episode alone and really feel like, oh my gosh, I feel so satisfied. Like, you need to watch more, or you need to know the context of everything. I mean, there's, you know, it's okay. And it's only 16 minutes. I mean, how long do they really have, or how much time do they really have to fill in all of that space? They don't. There's just not a lot of space, or 11 minutes, you know. So no, it's a great episode, dude. I'm really excited to talk about this one. And it's almost so many things happened and so much was said in this episode that I'm a little nervous. I'm a little unsure about where we're going to go.
What next? Where it's going to... Oh, you mean just with our podcast?
Where we're going to go. No,
okay, well, I have a good... I just... Google, you know, we're wrapping up this season, and we'll obviously, more than likely, we'll do like a season 4 review and rehash and top 10s and across the board here. But here is like the cheesiest thing I could find on the interwebs about season 4. Season 4 of Adventure Time, Finn the Human and his loyal companion, Jake the Dog, continue their whimsical and adventurous journeys through the land of Oo. This season introduces new challenges, characters, and mysteries for our heroes to unravel. Finn and Jake find themselves embarking on thrilling quests, encountering strange creatures, and delving deeper into magic and post-apocalyptic world they inhabit. With their unique abilities and unwavering friendship, they face both lighthearted in more intense situations and further explore the fantastical realms of Ooo while uncovering secrets about its history and inhabitants. So that's a good synopsis, very cheesy, but I think the uncovering secrets about its history is where we're going with the adventure. We've had like little snippets of seeing, especially with like the last episode, and I remember you realizing that like, okay, like we're going to start getting into that darker side of like, this is a post-apocalyptic world and there's monsters and there's the Lich and there's multiverses. So you just got the rest of like the core canon almost, maybe except for a few high-arcing storylines, but you got where they kind of are stapling their canon for the whole rest of the show. So I can see why you're probably overwhelmed with stacking these two episodes on top of each other.
Well, also new concepts and multiverses obviously make everything a little more complicated than sometimes they need to be. And it'll be really fascinating to see how this plays out and see how they decide to go about the multiverse concept. I have an overarching theory. I mean, if I was going to have a theoretically speaking, I guess this is it. There are other theories I have throughout this episode, but I was just trying to think, I'm like, maybe Finn, I don't know. And I don't know how the multiverse is going to work in this world, but maybe Finn has to eventually recruit all of his other Finns in the other multiverses to help defeat the Lich that is trying to, like, he's threatening the entire multiverse. Maybe it's more than just the world. And that's why this is so much bigger than previously when the Lich was out and he was trying to take over the Candy Kingdom and the land of Ooo, and Billy stopped him. Maybe this is more of like, the whole multiverse is at threat, you know? And so, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if Finn has the kind of, what is it? The Enter the Spider-Verse or whatever, Enter the Spider-Verse, where he has to team up with other Spideys.
It's a little, I think, well, that's everything that's been popular in multiverse right now has been with Spider-Man, with Rick and Morty, with Loki, with Avengers. Yeah. And so we're not going into that. I can just kind of get rid of that theory. Because that would just make it so like, oh, Rick and Morty ripped off Adventure Time. Like, so.
Gotcha.
It's cool. They do a really good introduction of it being a canon event and something that Finn and Jake like know about every day. But that's actually, I've got some notes that we'll go into deeper on the Enchiridion that I think actually play into a lot more of a philosophical perspective of multiverse and kind of what Finn and Jake are going for, which is to just like live a happy life and protect the world they live in. So we'll get into that kind of later in the episode for sure.
Well, let's dive into the beginning of this episode, man. We get the title card, which is obviously the Lich's terrifying face, and Finn and Jake are his pupils, which I thought was a really cool title card. I'm like, man,
yeah, dude, it looks dark and messed up too. Like it's a freaky. Yeah. If I was a kid watching that show, like that alone would kind of freak me out, you know?
Well, the Lich's face, always, the fact that his skin is coming off of his skeleton, always, you know, I don't know, it creeps me out a little bit. But you fade into what is a premonition dream, or what is said to be a premonition dream, because the Cosmic Owl shows up finally. Yeah. Like, where have you been, bud? But I guess if he showed up every season, it would be like, it wouldn't be as special, right? So he's in the TV, this premonition dream, and it's Finn. And at first I was so confused because he's hanging out with Billy. Billy's kissing his lady. There's puppies.
And that's not actually Billy's lady, by the way.
Is it not?
Maybe now, I don't know. That's what Finn says, but we do see Billy's ex-girlfriend come in later in the show too.
Oh, she come. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, just for one episode.
Is Billy not dead? What?
No, but Billy's ex-girlfriend. No, Billy's gone after this episode.
Okay,
like
I was so confused.
I think, the Lich pretty much got. I don't really think there's a Billy return after this.
Okay, so the Lich killed him. The Bear's Revenge is what I'm calling it. I think, as we know from the theme song, Billy's theme song, he fought a bear. So I'm thinking.
That's very true. I didn't even think about that.
I'm thinking this is the Bear's Revenge. We needed a motive. We were wondering what the motive was of the bear to get the Enchiridion. Maybe he was being controlled by the Lich, but maybe he was working with him and he's like, hey, either I got beat up by the Lich or someone I know. Like, it's the straight up, like the
what do you mean by Billy?
Yeah, the pod of orcas, right? That they're sinking the boats wherever in the ocean because one of them might have gotten, hit by a boat at some point, and so they're taking them down because they can communicate. Maybe that's what happened with these bears. These bears are like, hey, if you ever see the Lich, we got to work together with him against Billy because Billy took out one of our bears, and we got to get our revenge. So, little fun, goofy theory for y'all. that I thought when I was
like
watching
that.
this.
I think that gives the gosh, I'm gonna just forget all the episode titles, but the episode with the bear.
Yeah, I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Can't remember. But regardless, that get like we were even podcasting about that episode, kind of going, this is just really random. Like, why does he talk? Like, what's the deal? Why does he want to be like Finn? And kind of putting a Billy like family revenge backstory behind it works really well. But he's in a premonition.
Yes, and in Premonition Dream, it's a really cool. I mean, once you start to see the snail and the bear, and then the bear's like, dark times are coming. Something was off, right? It happens that Finn is sleeping and dreaming this, but I did think it was really interesting that the lady that Billy was kissing in this dream says, "You talk like Justice, Billy, but you can't kick a plane." And do you have any theories about what that might be? Like why she said that?
I tried to think about that, and I don't know if it actually truly means something, or if it's kind of like that dream state of like everything's like half of it's making sense and half of it's not. So I kind of thought that was more of like something in the dream that just introduces more chaos or whatever.
Yeah, and maybe I'm thinking way too into this. My thought, if I had to find a meaning, because I was looking for one, right? And when you look for a meaning, you're going to find one, whether it's true or not. The meaning I found was, no matter how big or righteous you are, it's impossible to change or influence that which is out of your reach or control. So the plane is, you can see it, and Billy is so righteous and he's this awesome hero, and he's so big because we see the scale of him compared to Finn in this episode. But even he couldn't kick a plane because the plane's several thousand feet above him, right? Or perhaps it's the future is going to happen no matter how hard you try to stop it. It's still, you can't, still going to happen.
Yeah, so it's very much the Thanos, thought. I am inevitable, because, Billy was the first one to defeat the Lich. So the Lich coming back, and kind of what I think is Finn's premonition dream is something that's already happened. The fact that the snail
it's the past.
Rolls into Billy's cave, reads the Enchiridion, and it possesses Billy. So this is, I think, like a Finn premonition dream, but also finally the cosmic owl. Like, Finn wakes up from the dream and goes, dude, it's that dang snail again. So I think Finn's been having weird Lich like possession dreams already, that the snail's like been influencing, and kind of the cosmic owl showing up in this one is the cosmic owl's way of telling him like, hey, the Lich is in your head, and like it's actually really happening. Like the cosmic owl is almost doing him a favor by showing up in the dream, It's
so crazy that Finn wakes up and describes Billy's face as something fierce. I don't know why, but that just felt there was a lot of weight behind that. And I thought that was really fascinating. And that's kind of where I was like, okay, maybe this is real. Maybe this really happened. Of course, you're thrown off because you see Billy in a moment here, but I was like, okay, that's just not a normal way to describe a bad dream, and or a look on someone's face. And so I may be reading way into everything, but it seemed interesting to me. And so I was curious. And also now we know that like Finn kind of indirectly killed his own hero, which kind of blows, dude.
Indirectly kills his own hero is a good way to put it.
Because he gave the Enchiridion to the bear. Gosh.
Oh, well, I've got several excerpts from the Enchiridion that all play into this episode, I think and we'll get into, like I said, I don't want to start that because we'll start going rabbit holing, but I'll pull it up. But remember that I mentioned it in this point as it pertains to Finn and Billy's relationship too.
Well, we're kind of going through this episode.
I was going to say, well, you said it threw you off a little bit. That Finn said his face looked like something fierce. I was like, it threw me off more a little bit, where Jake's like, I had a dream where I was in kindergarten, except for I had really big feet and I was also the teacher. It just is like,
I love that.
I don't know, like that was
Jake
so
moment.
Funny.
It was a good Jake moment. But there are several moments in this episode that kind of gave you hints, a little foreshadowing bits where you're just like, oh, what's going on with the Lich? Why is he acting so weird? Billy.
Hey, Billy.
Why is he slapping Finn? Get out of my pocket, when Finn's trying to get candy out of his satchel or whatever. Yeah. Or the very next scene, when they go to, it's 3 a.m. in the morning, they wake him up. Finn talks about the dream. He reveals it, or whatever. And
Billy's like not that freaked out by it.
Yeah, he is a little stunned when he says about the snail, when he talks about the snail, because that's obviously saying that, like Finn's onto him, and the Lich is trying to determine how onto him he is. But what's interesting is He asked for so Billy asked for confirmation about the Cosmic Owl, right?
Owl, meaning the Lich understands that if the Cosmic Owl shows up in a dream, it's inevitable. So I think the Lich, if the Lich was biding time at all, just kind of like hunkering down for a little while, the fact that Finn has a true Cosmic Owl premonition dream, the Lich is like, okay, like I have to move or else
it's time.
Like it's time. Moves. Yeah.
But it's interesting because Finn, as he's asking about the Cosmic Owl and all that stuff, Finn doesn't mention anything about the snail being the Lich, or there's no like basically what he says. So Finn says, "Sorry, I'm all over the place this morning. The snail killed you, or something." And Billy sends Finn on a mission to save all life from the Lich. There's this kind of assumption that Billy makes, or kind of a mistake that the Lich has, where he says. He jumps to the conclusion that, the snail is the Lich, or the Lich killed Billy, or not Billy. Well, yeah, killed Billy in the dream, right? In my mind, that caused me to be like, wait, why would he jump and just say that we got to save the world from the Lich? At no point in that dream was the Lich mentioned. It was only the snail that was ever mentioned.
Yeah, and Finn doesn't know anything about the snail.
He's so
being
starstruck. Finn is so starstruck. He doesn't even think about it. He's like, this is the greatest moment of my life. I get to go adventure with Billy, and I can't believe this is happening. And he doesn't think anything about it.
You see him really caught up in it too when they're riding on Jake's back and Billy's hair's flowing and Finn pulls his.
Yeah.
That's kind of a thing. Is like Finn's like shredding something that makes him truly himself to be just like Billy. And I would say an overarching theme of this episode is kind of, if it wasn't already like the first Billy episode where he was like a little bit disappointing to Finn. But this is truly like the death of your hero. Like,
oh gosh,
a lot of trust issues got to come like out of this as well. And then trust issues, in my opinion, with Princess Bubblegum. She immediately,
you think so?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't necessarily the cutting up of the little people, which get my lovely of the episode anyway.
Oh, nice. Yeah, they're great.
It's the fact that she immediately is like, "Don't do that. It's the Lich." And I was like, dude, how does she know? Like, she knows immediately. So she has to have some prior knowledge of something with her gem, and the Lich wants her gems. Like, she has to have a prior knowledge that she hasn't shared with Finn if she immediately jumps to that conclusion. You know what I mean?
So
that kind of threw me off.
I don't know. You took that a different way than I did. I didn't take that as like she's making assumptions or nothing. I'm on Princess Bubblegum's side in this entire moment. I think it's really cool, if not kind of odd, as you're saying, that she recognizes it's the Lich immediately. I think there's something that Finn's not seeing because it's his hero, or maybe because she's been around for 1,000 years or whatever it is.
Well, and I would assume that the Lich in the past maybe had gone and tried to steal a bunch of jewels in the past.
Yeah, the jewels, maybe that's a sign. Like, why would anyone be doing this? Like, there's a lot of things that are triggering her where she's just like, okay, Finn just crashed through my roof and he's like on top of me and trying to steal my jewel without saying anything. And this is not the way Finn acts. And my thought is maybe Finn was slightly being like very, very subtly being influenced by the Lich, because he doesn't have a gem on, right? Which we saw previously in Mortal Recoil, that you have to wear one of the power gems in order to not be influenced by the Lich's
right. So it could have been like a subtle influencing, and
sure. So Princess Bubblegum's like, wait, whoa, what's happening? And kind of thrown off by that. And, obviously someone crashing through your roof and trying to steal something from you. I think you're right to be a little concerned about it. And she accidentally cuts him, but I don't think that was like an intentional thing. She even apologizes right afterwards, right? But what I did think was really, really fascinating, other than the fact that she recognized it, and the Gumball Guardian also recognized immediately. That's the other thing. It wasn't just her. It was also the Gumball Guardian.
But he didn't do anything until the princess screamed it out. That's why I affiliated the princess.
It seemed like he was too far away. I felt like he was behind the kingdom, came out of nowhere, pointed, said the Lich is there, and then freaking shot an energy beam out of his mouth.
You haven't seen
that.
You have not seen the true power of the Gumball Guardians yet. They're like super OP, by the way.
He's my lovely. The Gumball Guardian is my lovely of this episode. I was so afraid of gumball machines as a kid because of that ability that they have to do, where they can just shoot energy beams out of their mouths.
Your ultimate
as all
destruction.
gumball machines can. Yeah, right. So, no, Dude, it's a really good scene. And I wanted to talk a little bit about sound design, actually, of this scene. It's my tops. And it was brought to my attention. Allie was listening in the other room. And she was like, hey, do you know what a death knell is? And Ned, have you ever heard of a death knell?
A death no?
Knell. Knell.
Death knell.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so the death knell is the tolling of a bell to mark someone's death. It can also be used to refer to the imminent destruction or failure of something. Okay. So in this episode,
did Allie give you the origins of where that came from? Is that like
we didn't look at the origins. It
sounds like something like they would do at a church during a funeral or something.
I'm sure, but I didn't look into it. So regardless, as we're listening to the scene, man, the sound design is just like so haunting, right? You got all of those harmonies going on. And then what's really cool is you hear some subtle bells and we're thinking, oh, maybe those are like the warning that Finn's actions against Princess Bubblegum maybe not the best thing. He's about to cause the destruction of Ooh indirectly, or doesn't realize that he's about to do that, right? After he steals the crown from her and he's about to steal the jewel from the crown, there is a very, very loud and very notable bell that tolls, within the musicscape that is happening, but it's way louder than all the other bells previously, and it's very, very obvious. I mean, it's a loud, thick bell that tolls. And so my thought is that's like, hey, we've reached the moment. The death knell is tolled, like you are in an imminent moment of destruction of the land of Ooh, potentially. And that, oh, dude, that's just so cool. When she pointed that out, I had to re-listen to it.
Do you want to know what I just Googled? That probably is the best, oh my gosh, this can't be perfectly lined up here that you even brought this up. I was I want to know the origin of this. And I was correct. It was a third bell in tradition. This is the thought origin, Old English tradition, that the passing bell was sounded to alert a clergyman that a person was dying so they could be brought to their bedside. But it was known as a third bell known as none other than the Lich bell.
The Lich bell?
I'm not even lying. No, Lych, not Lich. But that's kind of a little freaky, isn't it?
I know for sure 2 warning bells that tolled, but I can't remember if there's more in the sound design happening in that scene prior to the really loud one. But go back, if after this, Ned, and listeners, go back and check that scene out. It is so cool thinking of that moment where the bell tolls. It's awesome. So
that's really cool.
Yeah,
that was a good. I thought it was a good tops and lovelies rolled into. Very rarely does our tops and lovelies roll into one. And I think that's a cool.
The sound design was almost my lovelies for this, just because the whole episode just felt so epic because of
and you have
sound design.
All of the great, you do have Lou Ferrigno back in it, and then you do have I forget the voice actor for the Lich, but they're pulling everybody in on this episode.
Yeah, the Lich is interesting. Sometimes he sounds so convincing, like when he was like, "Hey, Finn, I can promise you eternal life. Just work with me." I was like, man, he's got that kind of tone that is kind of comforting in a way that you hear bad guys do sometimes when they're like, no, come on, what are you doing? We could be buddies.
It's almost freaky because it's calming at the same time,
It
and
is.
I think that's definitely done on purpose.
Yeah, no doubt, man. That scene at the end there was pretty good too. Just I really thought it's just something's going on that Finn's not seeing, that we're not seeing, that allows Princess Bubblegum and the Guardian to point out that it's the Lich. And it's crazy that, he breaks the book over his knee after all the jewels have been inserted into it. And it's got to be...
Except for LSP's jewel.
Except for LSP... Well, I've got a theory about that if you want me to go into that.
I've got another theory. Well, there's one theory I've read online. It's pretty... simple, that she's just not the ruler of lumpy space. So
oh no, really? Matter. That's great.
Another one just goes back into again, multiverse. Lumpy space is pretty referred to as not in this universe. So it's a fact that it's a different dimension. Not a power gem from this universe.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've learned about in this episode. We learned about the different links, and we'll talk about it after the break a little bit. Mm-hmm. But the permanent link with Earth in another dimension perhaps is what allows like lumpy space and Earth to be accessed through different portals. And I believe that hers doesn't go in either because like it's not a real gem. Like it's just a giant gem she found and she stuffed it in her head and it's really gross. Or
that's actually a good theory, but
yeah, or maybe it is a gem of power, but it's one for another world, and so it's kind of like Dragon Ball principles, right? Yeah. Where like with Dragon Ball, in order to make a wish by summoning the giant dragon, you have to collect all the Dragon Balls, but they have to be the Dragon Balls from the Earth you're on or the world that you're on. They can't be from another world. Like you can't just substitute a number 2 from another planet. So that was kind of my theory about it.
I think that that's the correct one that they were going for, because they do get into a lot more of lumpy space and how it pertains to like the land of Oo and the lumpiness in general. So I think that that's kind of alluding to, again, there's something just very core different about LSP than other princesses too.
Dude, I do have a question for you, and maybe this will be our moment where we need to reflect a little bit for a commercial break. One of the princesses was like a fetus princess, right? Like what was going on there?
We've seen her come up like 3 times now, 2 or 3 times.
I just don't remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's been
the crown from her, or the jewel from her crown, and I'm like, how did that work out?
I've been calling her fetus princess.
Okay,
she's I think referred to on the fandom as embryo princess. But
embryo princess,
yeah,
might be more accurate, but
I don't like that.
Know. No, I just think it's crazy that they stole the gem from this princess, and the logistics there don't make sense in my mind.
Are very X-rated. Let's just say that.
Yeah, how did someone sleep through that? Anyways, moving on.
Yeah, we need to maybe take a breather after your dirty mind gets into these. These thoughts.
No way. Let's see on that. Hello, my name's Russell Tyndall. You may know me as Allie's boyfriend, or maybe even from my one-time appearance as an extra on Cartoon Network's Cartoon Fridays. As you may now know, the Lich is free, and likely enacting a plot to destroy all of life as we know it. In addition, the hero of our kingdom, Finn, fell through a portal to another dimension entirely. This will likely bring up a lot of tough questions from your kids at the dinner table. What is going on? Who will take care of our family dog when we're gone? Do we have to be evil? I don't want to. And how are human babies made? Unfortunately, Princess Bubblegum is still working on that last one. As for the others, we likely won't know until season 8 or 9. For now, please secure your butts, pray to Glob, and keep your hopes up best you can.
And welcome back to the podcast. We're talking about Adventure Time and the Lich and Multiverses and the Enchiridion and Candy People and Princess Bubblegum. Talking about a lot.
Yeah, man. Dude, you know, it's hard to not be a little bummed just knowing that we're all potentially going to die from the Lich, but we're hanging in there right now. Season 4, it's over. Season 5, we'll see if we have hope at the end. I don't know what happened to Finn. Who knows what happened to Jake? But as a candy person, as the real candy person, Russell Tyndall, we'll see.
Start your Tyndall.
Start your Tyndall. I
have a good way. We've got a lot to unpack about the multiverse and the Enchiridion and everything that happens in this episode. So I wanted to kind of go back in and look at IMDb's top 10 shows with multiverse theories to kind of see what it was.
You were hoping Adventure Time would be there.
It is. It was number 3 on the list of the top 10. Number 3 was Adventure Time.
That's exciting.
Which only ones above that were Doctor Who and Rick and Morty. So I was like, absolutely. The whole premise of Doctor Who is multiverse, and the whole premise of Rick and Morty is multiverse. So I was like, okay, like that works well. But the other ones on the list, starting from 10 down to Adventure Time, is What If, the Marvel series, the Flash TV series, His Dark Materials, The Man in the High Castle, Midnight Gospel, which I'm very glad made the list, Loki, and Infinity Train, which Infinity Train looks really cool. Never really looked into it, and I kind of want to watch it now.
Yeah, I believe we've had people mention Infinity Train to us as comments and as messages, just saying, hey, y'all should check it out. I would be very curious to know, and we don't have to look into this, maybe this is a conversation for another time, if there is like an original show or book or something that influenced the like idea of multiverses in fictional novels or fictional canon.
Yeah.
Just because
I don't know about fictional canon, like what might have been the first one there.
Yeah, I'm very curious only because I think, and what I'm seeing with like social media and TikTok and all that stuff, the things that we discovered when we were 12 and we were like, holy crap, this is insane. No one knows about this sort of a thing. And then, of course, everybody knows about it. It's so repetitive. Like, there's content constantly that's popping up on my For You page that I'm like, dude, like, what? This isn't a new idea or a new concept. It's just a recycled content from the past. And it's interesting to see how cyclical all that stuff is, but I don't know. Yeah, conversation for another time, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, I tried to do a quick look up here, and it does kind of look like, honestly, Stan Lee and a lot of kind of the early comic book stuff Stan Lee with Marvel, and then DC Comics Flash 123, Flash of Two Worlds, introduces that kind of multiverse theory. But also another far-raging fantasy multiverse is Michael Moorcock, who actually named the concept in a 1963 science fiction novel, The Sundered Worlds. So it probably is that Sundered Worlds fiction novel that introduced multiverse as an actual like coined expression, you know.
And I'm sure it stemmed from somewhere else. Like there was a philosopher or someone wrote it in some book in the 1800s or something, right? I do think it's so fascinating how every generation discovers kind of the same things at the same time. And like there will be another Rick and Morty where everyone's like, holy crap, the multiverse thing. Or maybe because of the way like media is so permanent now and the cultural zeitgeist that like Rick and Morty will forever be known as like that crazy big one that occurred, and everybody will always reference Rick and Morty or whatever it is, or Enter the Spider-Verse from here on out whenever they're talking about multiverse. It'll be really fascinating to see how that works.
It's not only that, because I would say, again, Marvel with comic books and DC with comic books did huge, multiverse clashes and huge epic novels and stuff. But the fact that pop culture now is so widely spread and like culturally accepted as a very, very common norm across, like, what do we talk about at the dinner table? Oh, like Marvel multiverse theory. But I love it. I love they give in this episode specifically, they give Booko a good little super, super fast-paced rant. He's definitely either the exact same character as Keeper from the Enchiridion, or the same race of people that are somehow
I'm gonna say same race.
Yeah, their race is either all just Keeper, or the race. They said it looks actually similar to the Door Lord as well, who also kind of has that ability to like
a little bit
transcend like space.
Door Lord aside, the Keeper people, maybe that's what we'll call them, the Keeper people or Booko people, they're all my forever lovely. I mean, unless something happens in the show eventually, I really loved Keeper, and I think this is a great. Like, he's just a little nerd, dude. He's a nerd about the multiverse, and he gives us one heck of a lot of information that I had to pause and kind of read through, just because I was like, okay, what are you talking about, bud?
I did the same thing just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And it's kind of, again, I think it's the fact that they're cementing this in the canon of like, this is how our version of the multiverse works. And this is what he says, if you don't mind me reading it.
Oh, no, please. Are you going to start with even before Prisma, where he talks about the very beginning?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have it as at the center of the multiverse is a dimension called the Time Room, believed to be a quasi-corporeal dwelling place of the almighty Prismo. The Time Room is a single dimension that exists outside of time. The Time Room produces time waves that are experienced by other dimensions. Some dimensions have permanent links that allow travel to and from. Others become temporarily linked by naturally forming wormholes. And others can become linked artificially by magic portals torn open by items of great power. An activated portal creates a time dilation in which either end of the portal experiences a temporal synchronization, allowing for the safe passage of particles through a non-local region of space-time. So just the fact that we're even talking about this in a kids show is freaking awesome. Like that's a pretty I'm sure not 100% scientifically accurate depiction of it, but they basically are saying there is a point in this, and I've got so much good stuff around this too, because I knew it was going to happen. I was holding off from it happening, but I had to kind of deep dive down Reddit threads and threads all about this specific kind of multiverse theory. But in the sense, it's like, the time room's at the center of the universe, and everybody experiences time differently in different universes until they're linked. And when they get linked, so when there is a portal, I guess, or a wormhole that connects those two universes, and they experience time the same.
But it's interesting. I'm curious about that. If they're permanently linked? So say hypothetically that Lumpy Space and Earth are permanently linked in different dimensions. You think they will always experience time at the same rate?
I don't think it's always. I think it's as long as those portals are open.
Okay.
Like as long as that portal is connecting the universe, time is operating the same way. So I think they mentioned that specifically so that Finn, when he goes to Lumpy Space, when he goes to the Nightosphere, when he goes to the Crystal Dimension, he comes back with the exact same amount of time that he was gone. So if he's gone for 10 minutes, he comes back, it's been 10 minutes. It hasn't been 0 minutes, and it hasn't been 100 years. I think that's probably a really simple way to create a multiverse theory where you don't start getting really, really fucked up. Like, hey, I was gone for 100 years and I come back and it's been
Everyone's
5 minutes, you know?
Well,
I think they do that.
My reason for questioning that is the language is an activated portal creates a time dilation in which either end of the portal experience temporal synchronization of their time, right? And I was thinking that was when you're artificially creating a portal that occurs, and not necessarily when it's like a permanent portal that's linked between two places, or maybe it is. Maybe you're totally right, and it is totally just, hey, if they're linked, and their time is passing at the same. I think that's probably the way they want it to be perceived, certainly.
Yeah,
and it's it's pretty interesting. Like, it's just with all the gems and or with other very powerful items, you can travel throughout the multiverse in any dimension safely. Is what we really need to take from half of that. It's just that, like, look, there's a way to get these places linked, and when you do it, you can get through there safely, and time is flowing in a way that doesn't mess you up by traveling through the portal.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I would say that just for the age and the whole, like, getting like gravitational theory of time, of it being like 1 second on this planet is 100 years on a different planet, you know?
Yeah.
But another thought I had beyond that, and kind of digging deeper too, is again with like time operating in waves, all these different universes are, operating. There came up a lot of like the vibration theory of like your temporal plane, where like, you're vibrating at a certain frequency, and then thus you're able to interact with everything in your own universe that vibrates at that same frequency. And that's like the quote unquote God particle of our universe, is what everything kind of vibrates at that. And we can see it and interact with it. And that's our physical temporal plane, right?
Oh, wow.
So what I kind of read in on is with a lot of multiverse theory stuff is they kind of believe that, like, if you can change your temporal frequency, that's what allows you to interact with things outside of your universe, aka like magic and portals and stuff like that. But essentially, I have a theory that I think that with the Mushroom War and the huge explosion and half the world being chunked off, that the Earth and I should say, became really malleable to temporal changes and shifts, being like it can operate on lots of different frequencies, and kind of, I guess, be pretty malleable, which means that it can be more easily connected with magic portals and with powerful objects now. And with, again, now there's a lot of magic crystals and different elements and things that are way outside of what would have been regular Earth physical existence. And that the Mushroom War shook that up, kind of changed the vibrational frequency of the Earth, turning it into and thus it can be way more influenced by different universes. So that's my super deep theory there.
Yeah, I think that's a very cool theory. That it's like one of those things where it's like, along with a lot of our other theories, we can't scientifically prove that that's a concept that would work necessarily.
I can't prove that, like, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it just sounds dope, and it sounds like something that, like, I definitely get it. I think that there's got to be some sort of an explanation if there's not one later in the show for all the magical items, for the magical creatures, for how all the creatures look and how they've adapted. We have no signs that that's how it was prior to the Mushroom War. Something must have changed. Perhaps it is the vibrational frequency of what were you saying, the temporal plane or whatever, right?
And I'm probably, pronouncing that wrong or doing the concept wrong. But but the gist of what I'm
love
saying,
the idea. The idea is really cool. And if anyone listening has a more scientific way of putting that or a way of explaining it to people like me and Ned who are trying to figure it out, please, write in to the Traveler's Log at nea.travelerslog@gmail.com.
Yes. I need all multiverse theories.
Oh, dude, we will 100% bring it up on the podcast. That would be so cool. But that's so great, Ned. I think that is a really good theory and a really cool just concept in general. And I did want to mention, while we're talking about the plane and traveling through the portals that you can create and all that, there is a third moment while watching this episode that I thought something was off about Billy before we really knew what was going on with Billy.
He wouldn't touch the crystals.
Well, okay, there's a fourth moment then, because yes.
that was going to be it. Yeah.
Dude, that is one of them that I wrote down. He doesn't want to touch the crystals. And I was like, why?
I've got a little bit of a theory on that one. So go on to your third and then we'll move to the next one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, mine was simply going to say that, like he said, his whole plan, the way he explains it after they learned about the multiverses and the portals and all that, and it was said so quickly, I'm sure Finn wasn't like fully grasping the concepts yet. Billy basically just says, I'm going to push the Lich in there. And my thought is, why? What would that do? You're just going to cause that issue for someone else. We know, based off of what we just heard, that he can safely travel to somewhere else through those portals. It's not like it's dangerous for him unless you choose coordinates that are like in outer space that'll kill him or something like that. And we've seen creatures that can go through outer space. So who's to say that the Lich can't? Because we've seen the Lich die and turn into dust by Finn pulling, using the sweater to, break his face or whatever. And the Lich is still around. So who's to say he can't exist in space? And I just thought it was such a weird solution for a problem that it didn't make sense. It didn't, why would the hero
it's not even space, it's that he's pushing him out of time and space into a different dimension. It's nothing.
You could go into another
dimension
in outer space, right? Is basically what I was saying. Because if you could choose the
technically
concepts,
not outer space, but that's getting into.
Well,
it's outside of time and space. It's not outer. So it's not like floating dimensions out in space.
No,
it's not like universes. It's not like galaxies. It's like truly different space times.
Gotcha. But I'm just saying, like, because you can choose where you're going to create the portal to, like, you could go to the time room, you could go to LSP's place or whatever. You could go to an Earth somewhere else, but outside of that Earth in outer space of that dimension. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you could literally just put them somewhere in the middle of nowhere in another dimension. But obviously, it just doesn't make any sense. It's a silly solution.
It's a flawed plan at the start of it.
Yeah, I was like, what's going on? So Billy was lots of moments where I was just like, this is an odd Billy and doesn't seem right. And so the reveal that it was the Lich, I was just like, gosh, okay, makes sense. That's crazy. And he's wearing his skin, which is, if that's really Billy's skin, dude, that's messed up. That's crazy messed up.
Yeah, it's kind of like this. I think it's a little bit more of like he possessed him, but if he loses any bit of that like physical form, it goes back to his like normal Lich form, pretty much. But
interesting.
Well, I have my thing again that threw me off with Billy is that immediately, why wasn't the Lich going after the gems himself, right? If that was all it took,
why can't he touch them?
He can't touch them. So I was like, that's a little confusing. So I had to look into it and remember what the Lich said in Mortal Folly, that in the beginning there was nothing, and before there was nothing, there was monsters, right? And that was just very confusing in Mortal Folly.
Yeah.
But kind of reading deeper, they were saying in the beginning, reality exists as a chaotic sea of monsters before anything was created. Beings such as the Orgalorg, Kokentepi, and the Lich reside in the writhing mass. By incomprehensible chance, the monsters eventually come to a common agreement of the state of reality. and that this consciousness becomes the multiverse. According to an ancient tome in the Enchiridion, the multiverse is therefore actually not material. The multiverse is an emergent product of consciousness rather than consciousness being an immanent product of the multiverse. Every sentient being that lives in the multiverse paradoxically maintains its existence by experiencing it. And this also means that every sentient being has an existence beyond the material known as their soul. So it's super deep in the realm of that. And so this concept is, I think the Lich is one of the, like, again, OG monsters of pre-existence that, all the writhing sea of monsters has to agree that this is our existence, and that consciousness becomes sentience pretty much. I think that the Lich was part of that and like disagreed with it and was like, no, like, I don't want there to be a state of multi-consciousness. It just, and what you kind of realize now is, or in the next season, that the Lich wants the end of all existence except for himself. So to get rid of multi-conscious multiverse.
In every dimensions then. So
in every dimension.
My thought that this is obviously bigger than just taking out Earth. It's everywhere and everyone is kind of right on. That's crazy.
And then that, I think, plays into him not being able to touch the gems. Maybe because somehow they have a power of being able to transfer around the multiverse. And that maybe something about his physical existence, like, it would burn him up, or it'd be, the Infinity Stone mentality that they would just like utterly destroy him or something.
I was wondering if it was something kind of like in the Lord of the Rings, right? You don't give Gandalf the ring because he's already very powerful, and therefore the influence of the ring on Gandalf would be even more detrimental to the world because he's so insanely strong to begin with, right? And you see a hobbit that is insanely weak is able to turn invisible, which is a nuts power. So who could only imagine how strong it would be if Gandalf had the ring? That was my thought. Maybe it was something like the ring. But it's probably not. I don't know, because I don't think the gems would control someone that was like, as you're saying, at the beginning of time. Like, that seems far more powerful. That's a Tom Bombadil of this world in that case.
Yeah, it's that. And then there's some theories again with the real world in Enchiridion that I think will kind of play into even that. Like, again, like, why would he not touch the gems? It's a lot of like, we very touched on it, like, I guess 2 years ago at this point, of Epictetus's Enchiridion. That's like a very short, like 30-page like book on kind of consciousness and being and the universe. And one of the big overarching themes is like, the world will go about as it does, and you can only control your actions. You cannot control anybody else's, and then thus you become a very like stoic thinker. And so probably the Lich's like lack of being able to physically influence or physically do anything has to go with like, I have to get other people to do things, thus it's their choice, not my choice. And that the universe like will play out the way that it does. So it's almost like he can't do anything himself. He can only influence others to do that thing, and thus he's like controlling the universe by like not actually doing anything himself. Kind of. Yeah. I don't know. That's another deep theory for me.
I think it's a very cool conversation. I wish I knew more about Adventure Time or the beginning of Adventure Time to really play into it. But dude, it's crazy. This is just a good episode of really getting so much deeper than we've ever gotten with this show. I mean, is it gonna? I guess this is we have our ground floor, right? We have our base now. We know we're just going to build on top of this with the multiverse. It's not like, oh, there's going to be more revelations about how it works. It's just more like, okay, let's show you based off of the rules that we've set in place how this can play. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's definitely that. I think that explains way more of like Adventure Time's like fantasticalness of like, there's a nightosphere and there's a lumpy space and there's a crystal dimension. Now that we actually have an explanation, it's not just random occurrences. But what they don't ever dive into, again, which other kind of multiverse shows go into, is that, your decision to flip a coin and it lands on heads in one dimension and lands on tails in another, and it splits off a time tree. Adventure Time does not really go about it that way, where every decision made or not made creates a dilation of your universe. Yeah. Is that your universe is very much naturally occurring as it is, and that's just your universe itself.
So we're not getting in the free will or nothing like that. We're just straight up, hey, just take it as it is. This is what's happening, and you have to accept it because this is reality, sort of a thing.
Exactly. Okay. And that's why I love the fact that they use the Enchiridion as the base of this kind of existence in the land of Boo. Let's just focus on that universe. Is that the main take? Here we go. I'm going to go on a rant here for a second, but this is going to be really good just to ground us in this kind of canonical thought process.
Please do.
The main takeaway from the Enchiridion is that the events outside of our control should not disturb us in the slightest. The first step is to stop seeing them as misfortunes. To do so, use the Epictetus method and consider whether the misfortune is your own action or involves the result of actions of others of your nature. If it is not your own action, you do not control it. In every such case, you must firmly tell yourself that it does not matter. For this to change your thinking process, you must do it every time. So have reminders handy. Reception is key. A key lesson in the Enchiridion, as a crucial part of researching Stoic-style enlightenment, is limiting your desires and aversions. Wanting things to go a certain way will often lead to disappointment, which leads to being upset with the cause of the disappointment, which is nature. If you are disappointed with an outcome, you are not accepting the course of nature. To implement this in your life, don't expect and pin your hopes on specific outcomes. When reflecting on future possibilities, remember that you will be fine no matter what happens, as long as you do not allow your character to be corrupted. So, I just think that that's such a really cool way, again, that we see Finn grow with his maturity in this way, with life comes at you, kind of really what Jake has experienced, with with the New Frontier. The universe is
they're
going about it, and the more you fight the outcome, the more you're going to be disappointed with it.
Yeah, and certainly, it's like that self-fulfilling prophecy of he causes the dream to happen and his doing of trying to stop it, right? So it's inevitable. It makes me so curious about the cosmic owl and the premonition dreams and how they play into this world and how they will continue to play in the future. Is it something that we just really need to, oh crap, someone had a premonition dream and that is going to happen or that's going to occur? It already occurred,
Can I give you
keep going?
Can I give you a little spoiler?
Yeah, tell me about. Is the owl what we believe him to be, or is there it's just kind of it's a coincidence or something?
A little bit. There's a little bit of both of those is true, and so my spoiler. And sorry for any fans. Plug your ears if you have not watched the show already. But there's a full Cosmic Owl episode where he basically you kind of see him in his cosmic universal apartment, and it's just a 1-room apartment.
Okay.
And he's able to basically take these little coins, put them in a coin slot, and his job is to go into people's dreams. And so he goes into this dream and he sees another hot bird that he's attracted to, and he's got a really funny little personality, and he chases her across 6 dreams, and it really upsets Prismo because Prismo's dude, you're making all these dreams come true that we're not supposed to be in.
Whoa, okay.
Across the multiverse, and that it's kind of messing up the time waves because the Cosmic Owl is making things come to fruition when he wasn't supposed to. So
wow,
think about it in that way.
Very exciting. I can't
that's
wait to
how the
get
Cosmic
there.
Owl will kind of play into all that.
Yeah, I can't wait to get there. And also that kind of confirms that, hey, no, these are legit premonition dreams with the Cosmic Owl showing up in them. What's the deal with Prismo then, man? I maybe don't get into it, but
no, yeah, we'll save that for next season, man.
Was he there at the beginning of time? Is he one of those beings that one of those monsters that you were talking about? I'm curious.
They say it's a quasi corporeal plane, right? Mm-hmm. The time room is the center of the multiverse where all time waves extend from, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we do have a physical we'll get into it, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but essentially the fact that it's quasi-corporeal is outside of our understanding of us being like three-dimensional beings, that it has multi-states of existence.
So perhaps he was before the monsters or before the...
Exactly. So there is something about his Prismo, like pretty much the most powerful being in Adventure Time. And I think it's widely accepted that he is.
Can I know, does the fandom like Prismo?
Yes,
a lot.
Okay. Prismo's like, he's gonna be my lovely next week. Like, absolutely. Good. He's like the coolest character in Adventure Time.
I just wasn't sure. I wasn't sure where we're gonna go with this Prismo character. I mean, if it's, I think of, again, I'm gonna bring up Lord of the Rings because I'm still taking my time getting through these.
I'm glad there's another tie-in for Lord of the Rings in this episode, so I'd love to hear.
Really? Yeah. I was just gonna say, I just like Tom Bombadil, the way he's described. I know a lot of people don't like the Tom Bombadil stuff because it doesn't really play into the Lord of the Rings trilogy in any way, and it feels a little random and out of nowhere. And then,
but remind me too and catch me up that it's the Silmarillion like story, right?
I'm not entirely sure because I've never read the Silmarillion, but I just from reading the very first Lord of the Rings book, you have this character named Tom Bombadil who comes up and saves the hobbits that are stuck in a tree or whatever. And he's living in the old forest, I believe. And I apologize if I'm getting any of this wrong because I'm new to this series. But he has kind of a place of dwelling that is outside of Middle Earth, and he lives there with, I think, the river spirit or something is his girlfriend or something like that. But essentially, like, the ring doesn't affect him in any way, and the ring is supposed to be this all powerful, all influencing thing, that was created by one of the, I don't know exactly the three, like,
it gets really deep when you start talking about Sauron being from Upper Earth or whatever. Yeah.
Well, so Tom Bombadil is described as like he was before this and before that, and he's like older than old. Like even the elves, they're like, when we met him, like he was old then at that point, and I think he's described as being before the creation of so many different things, or the creation of Middle Earth or whatever. And essentially, Frodo gives Tom Bombadil the ring, and he puts it on. Nothing happens, and he just like seems totally uninterested in the ring. And they talk about in the council meeting when they have the big council. And maybe we shouldn't go into this rant because I don't know anything about Lord of the Rings, but he's basically like, they ask, can't we get Tom Bombadil? Can't Tom Bombadil help us? And Gandalf basically says he's not concerned with us. Like, we play such a small part in the greater scheme of the world or whatever. It matters so little to him. Maybe if you get every living creature in the world to beg him, he might do something about it. But the chances of doing that is impossible. So it's very interesting. And so that's why I'm thinking maybe Prismo is like this Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, he's definitely a Tom Bombadil-esque character. That's for sure. But with a lot less, I guess, like, what would you call it? Nihilism from the sound of it.
Maybe. Or a lot less singing.
A lot less singing.
Yeah, Tom Bombadil sings a lot.
I'm glad that you brought it up, though, because I think there's a cool reference to it. And I think, again, kind of probably Pinward's, like, again, just love of Dungeons and Dragons and all the lore stuff. All lore stuff across the board is that when the Enchiridian's lock pops open, actually the Elven alphabet from Lord of the Rings is inscribed on the inside of the lock. And it appears to be the beginning of the inscription of the One Ring. Cool. So that was cool. Again, like, you tied it back to Lord of the Rings with Tom Bombadil, and then, like, again, existing outside of a realm of time and space. And that's like, maybe that's a callback to what they're getting into here.
Well, I got some other smaller questions, but I think we might talk about them after the podcast, just us two, because I don't think they're really going to be interesting for the viewers. But man, this was great. Do you have anything else that you wanted to talk about with this episode before we start wrapping things up?
I have a couple of just like fun facts again.
Okay. Yeah.
Not too many. Again, that was very like straightforward of an episode. That when Billy chants the Latin phrase to open the multiverse map, he says "exhibo carnatum," part of my Latin, which literally means "I show charts," but it's probably meant to mean show the map. The scene where Princess Bubblegum's chopping off the limbs of the creatures was actually censored and cut out in the UK version of the show, which I thought was very funny. And
they're so unbothered. They just don't even care. They're just like, I don't know. I thought that was kind of cute in a way.
Again, one of the, our whole playing God mentality. We've talked about that way too much. I wasn't going to talk about it this episode.
Yeah.
And then after the portal closes, we saw LSP's gem didn't go into the Enchiridium, but when it pops, when the portal closes and all the gems pop out, we do see LSP's gem. And I read that this is a strange theory that may have to do with the origin of Lumpy Space. That's all I read on that. We'll probably do some more Lumpy Space diving deep into later, but hold that too, because again, kind of with different dimensional planes, I don't know if that's a significant moment or not. But
I wonder if it could play into the fact that Billy was not quick to answer whether or not there were 2 or 1 gems left to collect.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't. Anyways, if he was like, "Well, do we count LSP's gem or not?" I'm not sure.
Not sure. Maybe he's not sure.
Yeah.
Because he was obviously telling them which gems to collect as well.
Yeah.
So maybe he didn't know.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, I love this episode.
Do you have any lessons from it?
Lessons from it. I do have some lessons. First off, Finn is going to need a lot of help to get over this Lich thing. And let's see. Now, well, that's just more of that theory that I was talking about. That's not really a lesson. Here's a lesson then. I got a lesson for you. I apologize for that. Great episode, but canonically plot does not make an amazing episode necessarily. Like there's more to it than just lots and lots and lots of plot. But I did love it. I did really enjoy the fact that we got to dive deep into this. I'm just saying that to say that I don't think this would be my top 3 episodes.
Not a standalone episode, but plays into. I think we said the same thing about the end of season 3 with Flame Princess.
I think we did.
Kind of being like it's we're happy that it's happening. We're happy that we're expanding on this Finn relationship, but the standalone episode wasn't like anything significant.
My other lesson is that Buko is a nerd, and I dig Buko, man. He's cool guy.
I think maybe just their little race of creatures is just like nerd creatures that protect ancient artifacts.
Yeah, they're awesome.
I only had one lesson from this one. Your friends and trusted mentors shouldn't ask you to do sketchy stuff. You need to you need to start questioning if somebody trusts, it's just like, hey man, like if you really want to get ahead in this world, like rob a bank. Like that's not good advice. So don't do it. Mm-hmm. That was my only lesson I had to pull out of this one.
Well, before we wrap up, Ned, I guess we should just mention the fact that they do show a little bit of a new dimension where Finn is Finn, but he looks like Finn from the Mirror Reflection and King Worm.
Yes, and King Worm had a lot of
episode 18.
King Worm, because he put them into a dream state, was almost pretty much kind of like another version of the Premonition dreams as well. So, we do see it. It is called Farm World. We will get some more into Farm World in the next couple of episodes. Cool. And I think it's, you know what? I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not even going to start getting into my theories on it.
Let's not. Yeah. So I'm very interested to find out more about this robot-armed Finn and his mom. He's got a mom in this.
He's got a mom who's got a wedding ring on too. So,
cool.
It's cool. It really brings more into a 3-dimensional view of Finn as well. If we haven't been 3-dimensional already, but more 3-dimensional.
Well, cool. Y'all, thank you so much for joining us. 4 seasons with you guys. This is pretty awesome. Well over 100 episodes at this point. And it just seems kind of surreal that we're, in a way, halfway through the show.
A little less. If you haven't spoiled it for yourself on Hulu yet, there's 54 episodes in season 5.
Cool.
We will be spending the next year on season 5.
Many more episodes to hang out with you guys and talk about Adventure Time. Well, thank you so much, man. I think me and Ed both, just love the fact that people listen to this podcast and enjoy our silly conversations about this show. And, I hope we can continue to bring it and continue to do what I feel is some sort of a justice for the show. I mean, it deserves a good podcast, and I hope we can bring that. Check us out if you haven't on Instagram, Never Ending Adventure Podcast, TikTok at Never Ending Adventure Cast, Twitter at NEA_podcast. Email us your thoughts, your opinions. Get on the Traveler's Log at NEA.travelerslog@gmail.com. And yeah, also another announcement, like we'll have that Patreon coming soon. It's not out yet, but it's coming. Just be ready for it, whenever we drop it.
We are content creating right now, which means it's hard to content create double down. So it's coming no doubt. When we can get a little bit of free mental space.
Yeah. My rec for this episode or for this week is Sushi Party Go, which is a fun little board game that me and Allie play with a lot of our friends whenever you need like a really easy board game that is super quick to pick up. It's basically you making a sushi menu, and it's just really adorable and it's fun.
Oh man, I don't have any recs for this week, man. I've been pretty much just playing Final Fantasy, which was my recommendation like 3-4 weeks ago. So I've just been jamming on that one. So
that's great.
Not much else, and maybe The Office.
Okay. Well, thanks, y'all. We'll see y'all next week for, I guess it'll be maybe a review of season 4.
Yeah, I think we're going to do probably, not as long, maybe not as long, but we'll do a season 4 recap. Just good hanging out. Good times.
That'll be good. All right.
All right.
Party forever.
Look, guys.